So you've been killing it lately, making all kinds of art, creating new concepts, drawing consistently, and now you can't draw anything. Like, bruh, what the heck, man? You've lost all inspiration or motivation you had to do art. It might be nothing is stopping you. Nothing has really changed, but you just can't seem to pick it up and do it. Sorry to say it, but you have up dog. I mean, you have art block. You have art block. And art block can happen for a bunch of different reasons, like doing too much art and burning out with it. Maybe you feel like you're not getting anywhere with art, or you've had a lot of other things you had to deal with recently and feel like you're just not in the mood to make art. It also just kinda happens, just randomly. You know, 1 second you like art, you get up, you sit back down, and now you hate it. It's inevitable that you'll run into art block, but there are things you can try to help you get out of that art block slump. But first, remember that taking a break is completely fine. Don't feel like you have to constantly force yourself to make art, you know, out of fear of losing progress or something. It's okay to get a little rusty. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It's okay for you to have a period of time where you just chill for a bit. You know, just like when winter comes around and all the plants go dormant, you know, they'll be back in spring and giving me allergies. But for now, they're taking a break, okay? Thank God for that. And if you want to try and keep up with your art during that time, that's also okay. Just make sure to give yourself enough time away from it. So the hardest part about starting a new piece of art is getting the ball rolling. You know, just actually starting it. Think of it like you're making a snowman, right? The very first time you stick your hands in the snow, it's gonna be cold and it's gonna be wet. It's gonna be not fun. And you have to pack that snow into a small ball. And then as you roll it, you know, the ball starts getting larger, faster and faster. And then you'll end up with, you know, one ball of the snowman. You know, and then once you're already halfway done with your snowman, you know, the cold isn't as bad. You know, you don't feel it as much. And then you start seeing the snowman come together and it gives you the motivation to finish it, right? It's all about just getting started. And if you live somewhere where it doesn't snow, go make a sandman. Go make a mud man. I don't know what to tell you. Alright, yeah. So the first method you can use to get started easier is set limits on your art. Whenever you sit down to do something new, you've got a completely blank canvas in front of you. That's infinite possibilities, and that's no limits. And it usually goes like, you can't think of anything to make, or everything you think of just sounds meh. Alright, so instead of just drawing anything you can think of, you should focus on doing a smaller, more specific thing. One thing I did was use a random object generator, or like a random prompt generator. And whatever it came up with, I would model that in 3D. You know, this helped me so much just to get started with stuff. And it made me make things I wouldn't have considered making otherwise. And the trick to make this work is once you get a prompt, you see it through, right? No matter what. No re-rolls at all, ever. Okay, maybe re-roll it sometimes, but really try to limit yourself doing that. Or you might find yourself in the situation where now you can't decide what random prompt to pick from, and it defeats the whole purpose of it. And this is good practice too, because if you get hired for your art, you're gonna be in the situation where you've been hired to make something, and it's not always going to be stuff you're 100% interested in making, right? It's pretty rare that whatever you get hired for is going to be something you absolutely love. It's just the way it is. But doing that, it helps you work through those points where you aren't as inspired as you think you should be. Putting limits on your art can also mean breaking down your art into smaller chunks. So instead of doing your whole process, maybe only do the sketch, like maybe only lay it out. You know, instead of a full character, just do their head, or their props, or their clothes. You know, sometimes you can be biting off more than you can chew, and it wears you out, and you hit art block. So try starting with a smaller piece of it. You can also try a different medium. Different mediums will give you different limitations to work with, and it can kind of feel like you're taking a break away from your usual art while still doing art. Maybe you've been doing so much of the same thing for too long, it's just starting to burn you out. And so trying a different medium, it can really help make things fresh and exciting again. Maybe try and work in a style that's very different from what you typically do, or make things you wouldn't normally make. I think it's easier to stick to what you already like to make, but just switch up your approach with it a bit. And the next thing you can try is to make a project. Yeah, the solution to not being able to make art is to do a massive undertaking of art. That's what I'm talking about. All right, but instead of doing random pieces, you want to tie them together into a cohesive world. Now, this could look like starting a little comic, or creating a world with a specific setting and theme to it. If you have a world or a set of characters you've already established, it can be easier to do something related to that, rather than doing one-off new ideas. You've already worked out some details, so it's less mental energy to get started with it. This is also a form of setting limits, because now you're making something that's going to fit in this world you've made and follow its rules. And this works out better if you already had some kind of world established before you got art block. But if you don't really have anything like that, you can always pull from an existing world or franchise and try some fan art. Another thing you can do is you can go back and try redoing some work you've done in the past, and maybe try a new spin on it. If you have a character you've done before, redo them with a different outfit, or a different hairstyle, or just do a different pose for them. That way you don't have to start an idea from complete scratch. Right? It's easier to do art based off something you're already interested in and are familiar with. Making your art part of something bigger than itself can give you a lot of motivation, because you start seeing the world taking form, and that can inspire you to add more to it. Alright, the next method is making short storyboards and small scenes. And this method is kind of related to the last one in the sense that you're creating some kind of world, but it's a bit more specific. This one I discovered when I decided to do a little challenge and do a short scene every day for like a month. About 4 to 6 panels, just a small scene or story. And I'd start with like stick figure type stuff, like not doing any of the details, just getting something down. Then a lot of the time after seeing something there on the page, I would flesh out the panels a bit more, and they would give me ideas and motivate me to start doing a little more. And the scenes weren't always like crazy action sequences or really interesting things happening. Keeping it simple is fine. It's easier to start simple. Stuff like someone going to sleep, something falling off a table.
Give me a drink, bartender.
Someone drinking a glass of water. Those mundane things, they can actually take up a large part of stories anyway, and they really make them feel more alive and real. So don't shy away from doing things you think would be simple or boring, right? They could be more inspiring than you think. I think this method worked because when you focus on just making a small scene, again, you're narrowing your ideas down to stuff that will fit in this scene and help portray what you want better. It helps you think a little more creatively about what you're making. So yeah, give it a shot. So if you are struggling with art block, hopefully some of the things I brought up here can help you out with that. And remember, take a break when you need it, and start small. Take it one step at a time. If you got a method that works well for you, drop a comment. I'm sure it'll be useful for other people here as well.